It began with a face, half buried in the cold silence of a cave in northern Spain. He had no name, no grave, no story. Just bones, preserved by time. A man who lived 7,000 years ago, long before cities or kingdoms, before agriculture or iron. His world was raw, wild, unforgiving. He was a hunter, a wanderer, a man shaped by cold winds and stone blades. His skin was dark, his hair black and tangled. Everything about him belonged to the Mesolithic world except for one thing. His eyes were blue, a pale, bright, glacial blue, a color that didn't match the rest of him or his time. It shouldn't have been there, and yet it was. That one detail changed everything we thought we knew, because blue eyes are not ancient. They are not widespread. They began with a single genetic mutation, likely near the Black Sea, sometime after the last ice age. A tiny change in DNA, quiet, invisible, and yet powerful enough to echo through millennia. That man, now called La Branya, wasn't the origin of the mutation, but he's the earliest proof we've found. A glimpse into a moment when human genetics turned a corner. That spark now lives on in millions of people today, maybe even in you. So where did those eyes come from? And why did they stay? This is not just a genetic story. It's a human one, and it starts in the ice. Your eye color comes down to one simple thing: melanin, the same pigment that darkens your skin and colors your hair. Eyes rich in melanin appear brown. Those with less look lighter, hazel or green. But blue? Blue is different. There's no blue pigment in the human eye. None. So why do some eyes appear as blue as a glacier under sunlight? It's an illusion, a trick of the light. When the iris lacks melanin, incoming light isn't absorbed, it scatters. Shorter wavelengths, like blue, reflect more. The same reason the sky looks blue. So when you look into blue eyes, you're not seeing pigment, you're seeing structure. Reflection, physics written in biology. This only happens when a specific gene, HERC2, stops properly activating another gene, OCA2, which is responsible for producing melanin in the iris. A single mutation in this region, called rs129138832, reduces melanin production, leaving the iris light and reflective. But there's a twist. This mutation is recessive. You need two copies, one from each parent, to show the trait. If you inherit only one, your eyes will likely remain brown. That's why blue eyes are relatively rare, and why they often cluster in families or populations with shared ancestry. It's not the only mutation that quietly reshaped us. Red hair is another example, linked to the MC1R gene, and like blue eyes, often found in cooler climates. Lactose tolerance, too, began as a genetic fluke in pastoral societies, and later became advantageous. Even heterochromia, having two different colored eyes, results from subtle changes in melanin expression. What's remarkable about blue eyes is that they offer no survival advantage. They didn't help us hunt, escape, or endure. They simply existed. And yet, over time, they spread. Why? Because evolution isn't always about strength or speed. Sometimes it's about chance, a founder effect, a small, isolated group, or the human tendency to notice what's rare and find it beautiful. Blue eyes may have started as an accident, but that accident, quiet, invisible, painted a new color into the human story. A color that wasn't born in the iris, but in a single line of code. A glitch in the genome that made the sky live in our gaze. When we imagine blue eyes, we often imagine pale skin. The two seem inseparable, like winter and snow, or north and cold. But that's not how evolution works. It doesn't follow our assumptions. And it certainly doesn't care about our categories. La Branya proved that. Discovered in a cave in northern Spain, the skeleton of a man who lived 7,000 years ago stunned scientists. Not because of his tools or bones, but Because of his DNA. It revealed something strange, something no one expected. His skin was dark, his hair black, but his eyes, blue. The kind of blue we still romanticize. Icy, luminous, familiar, but not where it was supposed to be. For decades, many believed that blue eyes evolved in light-skinned farming populations in Northern Europe. That light features traveled together, adaptations to cold climates and low sunlight. But Labranja shattered that idea. He was a hunter-gatherer, not a farmer. A forest dweller, not a settler. His people were mobile, wild, shaped by stone and silence. And yet, those eyes already existed. Further north, in what is now Sweden, scientists uncovered another population from around the same era, the Motala hunter-gatherers. They, too, had blue eyes. But unlike Labranja, their skin was lighter. These findings suggested something radical. Eye color and skin color did not evolve together. They were shaped by different forces, different timelines, different needs. Skin color is deeply tied to sun exposure. Melanin acts as a natural sunscreen, protecting against UV radiation and aiding in vitamin D synthesis. In high UV areas, darker skin offers protection. In low UV zones, lighter skin absorbs more sunlight, producing more vitamin D. It's a story of adaptation. Eye color, on the other hand, is mostly cosmetic, at least in terms of survival. It affects light scattering, maybe visibility, but not much else. It's more likely shaped by randomness, social preferences, or even mate selection. So what does it mean that some of our oldest blue-eyed ancestors were dark-skinned? That identity, ethnic, racial, historical, is far more fluid than we imagine. That the features we see as belonging to certain people may have roots far outside those borders? Labranja's gaze challenges us. It asks, what else do we think we know about ourselves that simply isn't true? And what happens when we stop seeing identity as a box and start seeing it as a story? Not every trait in the human body exists because it helped someone outrun a predator or survive a famine. Some traits spread not because they saved lives, but because they caught someone's eye. Blue eyes are one of them. They offered no clear survival advantage. They didn't make you stronger, faster, or more fertile. In fact, the mutation that caused them, the rs129138832 change in the HRC2 gene, didn't seem to do much at all. And yet, over generations, it spread across Europe like a quiet ripple. Why? To understand that, we need to look at where it happened. After the Ice Age, small bands of hunter-gatherers moved across Europe's thawing landscapes. Populations were scattered, isolated, often numbering only in the dozens. In such small gene pools, a single mutation by chance could become common. This is the founder effect. When randomness, not usefulness, shapes inheritance. But that's only part of the story. There's also attraction. Blue eyes are rare. In most of the world, brown dominates. And in biology, rarity can become desire. Traits that stand out often draw attention, like a peacock's tail, or a songbird's elaborate call. They aren't practical, but they're hard to ignore. In humans, eyes matter more than we realize. We don't just see with them, we communicate through them. Eye contact builds trust, signals emotion, creates bonds. Some psychologists suggest that light-colored eyes, especially blue, create more visible contrast between iris and pupil, making expressions easier to read, reactions more obvious, feelings more transparent. In early human groups, that could matter. A face with blue eyes might hold gaze longer, be more readable, more emotionally accessible, more desirable. And in a world where partners were few and every connection mattered, even small preferences could echo across generations. Today, we see something similar in modern behavior. Hair dye, eye-enhancing contact lenses, cosmetic trends that highlight the eye's lashes, brows, eyeliner. We're still drawn to faces that stand out, that speak through subtle cues. Blue eyes may not have helped anyone survive, but they may have helped them be chosen. And sometimes, being chosen is all it takes. So perhaps this color spread not because of cold or sun, but because someone looked into a stranger's face and saw something rare, something beautiful, and couldn't look away. If survival shaped our bodies, maybe desire shaped our gaze. And evolution, it turns out, listens to both. If your eyes are blue, you carry a secret. Not a secret of royalty or fame, but of quiet endurance. A flicker of genetic code that once lived, unnoticed, in a single person thousands of years ago. Someone who never knew their legacy. Someone who hunted, knelt by rivers, slept beneath trees, and vanished into time. One mutation, one life. Now millions. That's how fragile and powerful history is. It doesn't always leave monuments. Sometimes it leaves light behind your eyes. Blue eyes are not ancient. They didn't come from kings or empires. They came from a forest, from silence, from chance. And yet, they traveled across continents, through migrations, wars, and love stories. They survived, not because they were needed, but because someone saw them and chose them. That is what makes them extraordinary. In a world that often reduces identity to labels, colors, and borders, remember this: biology tells a different story. One of shared roots, invisible connections, and unexpected origins. A person with dark skin and blue eyes in the Mesolithic age reminds us, humans have always been more complex than the categories we invent. So, look in the mirror. Whether your eyes are blue, brown, green, or gray, know that you are part of something vast. A lineage shaped by ice, by fire, by accident, by love. Let that knowledge humble you. Let it empower you. You are the result of millions of years of resilience, mystery, and quiet transformations. And still, your story isn't finished. So ask questions. Follow the threads. Learn where you come from, not to limit yourself, but to understand how limitless you truly are. Because one look in the mirror can hold 10,000 years of memory.